Hello, everybody. This is Grizzly from Lexington, Kentucky. I have a special guest on tonight's show, Jason. How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Wonderful.
I'm
Welcome to.
very happy to be on your show.
Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, I am a wildlife and pet photojournalist. I started 25 years ago, and I would make these videos, and I would meet these people that have the most amazing animals on the planet, from wolves and tigers and bears and ostriches and you name it, monkeys. Yeah, you name it, rhinoceroses, all as pets. And
Wow.
that's what I used to do. I used to fly out to these places. I used to take pictures and video. And yeah, it was great. I used to interview the people and get their stories about, heck, why a 300-pound tiger or a 900-pound grizzly bear. And so I did that. I've been doing it since until 2019 when the pandemic kind of hit and everything got shut down.
So, what
And yeah,
got you involved in all this?
so back in the day, I was doing event photography and wedding photography, and somebody came up to me after I did this event, and they said, "Hey, can I hire you to take pictures of my dog?" I said, "Really? Your dog?" Because I never knew people would get photos, would pay to get photos of their dogs done. And he's like, "Yeah." I said, "So you and your dog?" He's like, "No, no, just my dog." And so I went there and I did the photo shoot, and I was hooked ever since. You know, he just hearing his the way he talked about his dog and some stories that he told me about his dog totally touched me. And I thought to myself, man, there must be other people that talk about their animals the same way, not as a pet, but almost as like their little baby.
No,
And
yeah,
yeah,
they
and
are.
that's how I got started doing that. And then someone came up to me and well, actually they called me and they said, "Hey, I have a caiman, like a 4-foot caiman that lives in my bathtub. Would you come and take photos?" And so I went there, and it was a specially designed uh, bathtub, and it was so exciting. I was able to get so close to this caiman, and you know, too close. This is a fake nose, and no, just kidding. But yeah, and then it was so exciting, and I thought, wow. And he was so impressed by the photos that other people that he knew that had exotic animals started calling me, and that's how it took off. And then I love doing the more exotic animals because it's more exciting. Not that I don't love dogs and cats, right?
All right, that's awesome. That really is. So, how long have you been doing this? You since the
About
COVID?
25 years. 25 years.
25 years.
Yeah.
Wow,
And so
that's
when the
really
pandemic
interesting.
hit, everything got shut down. And then I thought, well, maybe I should look into this creature known as Sasquatch, because growing up I always hear about it. And being a skeptic, I decided to go and ask questions and meet some eyewitnesses who, say they've seen this creature. And it led me from one person to another person. And it led me deep into the mountains of British Columbia. And I decided to start filming my expedition and putting it into documentary style. And I found hundreds and hundreds of these giant footprints, huge
Wow.
footprints in this lake. I went right across this lake, and I took a drone and I actually droned in the top of it, and you could see all these footprints going right across. I'm not saying it was Bigfoot that made them, but when I showed the video to the First Nations people, they said, "Yeah, I found the migration path of Sasquatch from Alaska all the way down to California, like their pathway." And then, I
Wow.
found other stuff too. I found trees that were ripped out of the ground, turned upside down, and jammed into the ground. I found deer that were ripped apart and hanging from trees. Um, with vines. Um, yeah, I've heard crazy stuff. I've seen crazy stuff. You know, it's been one heck of an adventure, and I love it.
Oh, I bet. So, what do you think about Bigfoot?
Well, I it's just interesting that I've talked to a lot of people, and even myself seeing uh, eye shine and whatever creatures will walk up to me. I mean, I haven't had a daytime sighting of a Bigfoot. So I can't sit here and say that I believe in Bigfoot 100% until I can get one that walks up and slaps me in the face, carries me off into the forest. And, as I'm crying and, here, just take my camera. Just leave me.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting. I believe that there's something out there. And I just find it interesting that everyone always finds one footprint, like one footprint. Even just recently in the Colorado Rockies, we found a footprint, and it was just under 13 inches long, but it was 5 inches across, and you can clearly see toes. And it was interesting, but it's just so funny that you just find one footprint. So I have a conclusion to that. I believe Bigfoot only has one leg, so we just look for these creatures hopping through the forest. There he goes. But I mean, I love the mystery and the adventures of it, and the new friendships that I've met.
Yeah, you will actually meet a lot of people out in the field that have a lot of experience. I know a lot of people that's been out there 30 plus years, never had experience. And I talk to people every day that have them on a daily basis. So, it's kind of strange. I got one guy that lives in Oklahoma, lived there for 25 years, and he wants to sell so bad, but he's afraid of what's going to happen to his clan of Bigfoot if he moves.
If
So
you
he's
what?
stuck if he moves.
Yeah.
So he doesn't know what to do because he wants to move, but he can't because he's worried who's going to move in and what's going to happen to him.
Well, you
So
never know. Maybe he can ask the Bigfoots to help him move, because they
hey,
are
you never
strong.
know. You never know, right?
So he's afraid that if he moves from this house, that there won't be any other, you know, Bigfoots in the new areas that he goes to.
Well, he's afraid of who's going to move into the house and what they're going to do to the creatures,
Yeah. Huh. Sounds like we
harm
need to go to
them,
his.
and
Sounds like we need to go to his place and do an investigations there.
he actually welcomes that. He really does. I've got another guy that I interviewed 2 or 3 weeks ago. Uh, we'll go back a few years, and he was taken underneath an older gentleman's wings, and he was taught the in and outs of how to track and follow Sasquatch and what signs to look for, and unfortunately, we do have a little Johnny out there in the woods running around in a monkey suit, drunker than hell, causing havoc. We know that happens. So
Yeah.
we do have the fakes and phonies. But he worked with this guy for 5 years, and he got really, really well with it. And he went on an investigation with him during the day, and they were probably not even 40 or 50 yards apart, and they heard the whistle. And they're like, you know what that is? Oh, yeah, we know
Hmm.
what that is. So he goes, I'm going to sneak around the corner of this tree line, and you stay right here. Well, the guy went around the corner of the tree line. It wasn't even 45, 50 yards. And they got real quiet.
Really?
Yeah, just real quiet. No birds, no nothing. So the guy made his way back over to where the guy was, and he was gone. So he start looking and hollering and everything, and couldn't find them. And hours went by, and he went back, called the police. The police showed up. The rescue showed up. They looked for days for this guy. They couldn't find nothing. Not a trace of anything. 3.5 weeks later, he goes back, and he goes way, way, way back in the woods, and he finds his ball cap. The only reason he knows his ball cap is, I don't know why, but the older generation, when I was growing up, always wrote their names in Sharpie underneath their bill cap.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he left it there, and he called the state police, and the state police come out, and he looked at it, and he was like, "You know where this is going, don't you?" He's like, "Yeah, I do." He's like, "Well, let's get out of here." He's like, "I don't think you're ever going to find the body." Because the kids wanted the body.
Yeah.
You know, for closure. They never did find him.
Really? Wow.
So, and I mean, when he told me that story, it just really hit home. I mean,
So
man, my hairs.
Was he hunting at the time? Did he have a gun?
No.
No.
They were just out looking for Bigfoot.
Oh. Well, so I was in Michigan. So I've made these documentaries called Searching for Sasquatch. And as it stands right now, I have about 5, 6 online on Tubi TV.
Uh-huh.
I'm working on 2 more right now as we speak. When I was in Michigan, I had an incident where another researcher and we went way deep into the back. We were looking for a recorder that the other researcher had put down. And as we were going, I was filming all the broken sticks because they were all twisted. And that was fascinating, right? Because, you know, researchers believe that they do these broken sticks for whatever reason, right? It could be just a, you know, for whatever reason, to lay the path for other Sasquatchers, or I don't know. I just, it baffles me. But I was filming all these sticks, and some of them were really thick, but my wrist, which isn't really that thick, so that's a bad example. But, you know, thick, and some they're twisted, broken, and I'm filming all of them along the path. And then we came across all these trees, like really thick trees that were all, I don't want to say pushed over because there wasn't any roots. It's as if they were pushed over, but like bent over. And like there was all these trees except for a big clump of maybe 20 of them. They were all right across the trail, as if they were all like leaned over, right? And you could say it was wind blown, but the problem is there was all these other trees that were still standing, and it was pretty thick. So we had to crawl through and get to the other side, and we got the recorder. And as we're walking back, there is a broken stick directly in the middle of the path, 2 of them. And we notice it as we're walking, and we walk up, and I'm like looking at it going, "Oh, this is strange. I did not remember this being here," because we always have to duck and go around it because it was and it was fresh. You could see it was still dripping almost with the sap inside. And you could see that it was still quite wet. And as we're looking at it, we hear a big crack behind us. We turn around, and the other researcher grabbed his gun because it could be a bear or a cougar, because we saw wolves. We saw lots of tracks.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, we look down the trail, and I see about maybe, I want to say like 60 feet, 70 feet. I see my light hits eye shine, and it closed his eyes. Either it closed it or turned his head. I couldn't tell you. And I'm looking at it. It caught me off guard because I'm panning the light, and I see it, and it shuts its eyes. And then it slowly opened its eyes again, but it was further back at that point. It took a few steps back. And then all of a sudden, a second one that was much smaller came out from the side, and it's like it saw the light and ducked back. And I'm just seeing the eye shine. Then they both just stood there, and we're filming it for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. and we could hear crunching in the forest around us. And now the researcher's like, hey, I think they're surrounding us. I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Huh. Well, they're going to be disappointed with me. I have no meat on my bones. So you're done, buddy. I can outrun you. But it was scary. And then after about 15 minutes of filming, and then suddenly they closed his eyes and walked off. And then we walked to that spot. And about 2 months later, when I'm going through the editing, when I turned the camera on myself to talk, I could see the eye shine behind my head. And I didn't see it in real time because I wasn't looking. It was in the exact spot where they were standing. And when we walked to the spot where they were looking at us, it was really dense forest all around us. But that one spot, there was an opening in the trees where anything could just walk right through. It was like a space. And then we started walking back, and then we went right back to the broken branch. And we're like, I bet they broke it to stop us, to look at it. And as I'm filming, there's eye shine literally 5 feet in the forest right there, which we didn't see in real time because I saw it 2 months later when I was editing. But as I'm standing there, I have the camera on me and I'm talking, and I pretended to take a step forward to where we saw the other eye shine behind us. I pretended to walk that way. And as I turned, I did what's called a bit of a dance move where I took a step and then I just turned quick. And I turned behind, and there, about 20 feet in front of me, there was a shadow, and it dropped to the ground, and then it crawled across the trail, almost like a giant spider. And I saw
yes.
the eye shine was just looking at me. And the one thing that was really disturbing, and I keep seeing it in my eyes, is the eyes didn't bounce. There was no sound, and the eyes were smooth. Just stared at me, went right across the trail, boom, 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 done, in the forest. And as I took a walk towards it, I could hear it move in the forest. And I just said, oh, it's a mouse, right? Because I was so, like, I was looking at it going, is that a cougar? Maybe a wolf? And being an animal expert, I know these animals in the forest. The only thing that it could possibly be, if anything, would be a cougar, because I know cougars will bend down. But usually they won't stare at you as they walk sideways. They'll turn their head.
Right.
And I had the camera facing me, so you catch my reaction when I'm looking. When I walked to that spot to show my other researcher friend where I saw it, as I'm talking, I see the eye shine behind our heads again. And this is 2 months later when I'm looking through the editing. When I'm editing, I see it. So I was like, okay, so I'm not completely crazy, only 90% crazy. And I'm not sitting here saying that it was Bigfoot. Also, I think there was a second one that was behind the tree that took a step back. But I was so focused on the eye shine that went right across the trail. And I could just see the outline of the legs as it went across. Yeah, it was really trippy to see. And that was in upper the UP of Michigan.
Yeah.
And we got howls and stuff. And that whole documentary is on Tubi TV. And so anyone can just go and watch. I think it's number 4. There's 3 and 4, and they're both in the UP. Chapter 3 and Chapter 4, Searching for Sasquatch. The Texas Screams, which is Chapter 5, that was completely crazy. Like the entire forest opened up around us with screams and howls and roars and just crazy all around us. And then you could hear the coyotes that were sounding off too. And I was so happy that I could hear the coyotes because I know the coyote sound. And then whatever the creatures were howling and screaming, and they sound completely different than the coyotes. So I was so happy that they were both screaming and howling, the coyotes and whatever these creatures were. And I even caught some eye shine that was on the ground behind us. But then again, didn't see it until I was editing, and I would have the camera. It's funny. From now on, when I go in, but not all the time, but when I go into the forest filming, one of my next Searching for Sasquatch documentaries, I purposely will talk in the camera, hoping that I will catch something, because they think my back is to them, so they feel
Right.
more confident. So chapter 6, what lurks in the darkness, that should be out soon. I'm just
Awesome.
waiting for Tubi TV to bring it on, so that should be out in a month or so. I just got back from Ohio. That was exciting. Michigan was fun. I actually came walking up on ice shine that was 15 feet from me, looking at me through the forest like this. It was almost monkey-like looking through the forest. It was like bouncing. And when I came around the corner of the bushes, it was whatever it was standing. And it was standing, I don't know how tall it was, maybe at least minimum 6 feet. And then it dropped to the ground, and it was just looking through the forest like that. I mean, I look exactly like the creature, just as good looking too. I even smell like the creature, I swear. But yeah, it's been fun. I love it. I do. I love the adventure and the hiking and the camping and the people I go with, and just, going out there and seeing if I can solve this mystery of Bigfoot.
Yeah, I mean it is pretty interesting. I don't know if you ever heard of this formula or not, but to determine a height of a Sasquatch by its footprint, it's every 2 inches inside of a footprint is a foot on a Sasquatch.
Really?
Did you know that?
Oh, okay. Well, that's interesting.
Yep. So you can take off your shoes when you get home, take a tape measure, measure your feet, and you'd be like, "Damn, he's right." I had somebody
Give me a
actually.
second. Let me check that out. Okay, let's see. 1, 2, 3. God damn, I'm 4'11". Son of a bitch. That sucks. No wonder why I can't see over a fire hydrant. Could there be a fireman? They're like, okay, Jason, go get the Jason, go get the fire. Jason, get away from that fire hydrant. Damn it, I said, don't stand behind the fire hydrant. You're fired. No pun intended.
Right.
But yeah, so I published 4 children's books called Adventures of Little JJ. It's about a 6-year-old boy who travels around the world, using his imagination to make new animal friends. And the last 2 books are Sasquatch and Bigfoot. The stories are surrounding the Bigfoot, helping the little Bigfoot, trying to find her family, Bigfoot. And yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's called Adventures of Little JJ, Rescue to Cryptid Island. To Save Bigfoot is the other one. I
Really
wrote a
nice.
song with Todd Parsons called Searching for Sasquatch. It's kind of a country bluegrass song, and that's out there. People can find that. It's called Searching for Sasquatch. It was written by myself and Todd Parsons, and Todd does all the playing and putting it together with the music. So if you like country, you might like it.
That's awesome. Really is. Have you ever had any scary moments in the woods?
With Bigfoot or just with animals themselves?
With Bigfoot.
With Bigfoot. Well, I mean, coming across the eye shine behind the bushes that were looking at me, I was like 15, 20 feet away from it. And lucky for me, I had my video camera recording. So I shoot with a 4K video camera, and I didn't have it filming when I came around the corner, but I had it in my hand and it was all set ready. I just had to push record. So when I pushed record, I missed it going down, but I caught it looking through the forest at me. And then it kind of ran off, and we kind of chased it through the forest. And I was with 5 other Bigfoot hunters, so we were like, yeah, that was really scary for me because I didn't expect it. Just walking around the corner there, this big thing is just staring at me. So that was pretty scary. But other than that, I mean, I was, when in the Michigan one, there was this giant X, massive X like this. These, I want to say 3 logs. There was 2 logs like this. They were massive, maybe that big around, about 30 feet high, and they were crossed. And then there was another one on top, and you could see one grew there and was pushed over, or at least it fell over, and then the other tree was pulled out somewhere else and moved to that spot and placed. Well, I decided to sleep in a hammock tent underneath the tree, right? Because I'm like, oh, okay, well, if these creatures are real and you guys say that this is like don't enter, well, then I'll just put my hammock tent. And I filmed the whole thing. And in the middle of the night, I hear crack. And I'm like, and throughout the night, I could hear small animals walking around, like a bunny, maybe a little, maybe a snake or a little fox or something. You could tell. And then all of a sudden, crack. And I'm like, oh my God, what the hell? And I hear crunch, crunch, crunch through the forest. And I'm sitting there like, oh my gosh. And then it stopped. And as it was walking, I could feel the vibration off the tree. I could feel it down the rope, like every time it took a step. And it stopped, and then it grunted in my ear. It was like, "Ruff," like it was pissed off that it was there. And I was like, oh my gosh, I almost peed myself for sure. And I'd be like, oh God, I'm like, shit. And then it started walking away. And then I kind of yelled out to see if it was one of the other researchers, either playing a joke or just whatever. And one of the researchers yelled out, Jason, yeah, I'm right here. And so I unzipped and got out really fast. And there was David sleeping under a tree about 20 feet away from me. And I'm like, dude, and he's all wrapped up because it was cold. I said, man, were you just walking around here? Like, were you just grunting at me and just playing a joke? He's like, no, Jay, I was sleeping. I didn't wake up until you called my name. I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? I'm like, oh my gosh. So we spent the next half hour looking around for any footprints or anything. But none. Not even that. Not even one footprint from that one-legged Sasquatch that's out there.
That's wild. I interviewed a guy last month. He's a big deer hunter, and he was in a tree stand, and a doe came by probably about 50, 60 yards, and he drew back, and he let go, and he's like, damn it. And he saw the arrow go right over its back, right in the dirt. So he spoke out loud, damn it, I missed it, and all this other stuff. He's like, well, I might as well call it a day. So he goes and heads back home. Next morning, he goes and back out. Let's see if I can get this right. Can you see it?
Oh, yeah.
His neck's broken. So
yeah.
Sasquatch broke a buck's neck and left it for him as a gift because he missed his. But unfortunately, he hollered out loud that he could not accept it because the meat has spoiled. So now he's worried about his neighbors thinking that, that he's poaching. So he drags his deer all the way around the bend down to the creek and covers it up with brush. He's like, hell, I walked this far. Might as well walk the rest of the way and go this way at the tree stand. And he did. And he sat there for 3 or 4 hours, didn't see anything. And he got down. And instead of walking the short way, he took the long way and went back down, and the deer was gone. He said, Grizzly, there was no drag marks. You can see my drag marks, but it looked like somebody just picked it up and walked off with it.
No.
So go figure.
Yeah.
Isn't that
That is
wild?
pretty crazy.
Yeah, it is.
Now, have you had an experience?
No, I have not. I have a lot of interviews with people who have experiences. I have a gentleman that you're going to find interesting that travels across the United States that deals with problems, Sasquatches, that won't leave families alone, that he goes hands-on with them.
Wow.
That's interesting.
So does he walk up to them and say, you leave this family alone or I will attempt to beat you up?
He does more than that. He's got
What's that?
he's got flashbang grenades. He's got he went out and got him a 300 Win Mag years ago.
Yeah.
Him and his nephew went out a few years ago, and I forgot there's a couple classifications of Bigfoot from his side of his story, and you can tell by the face because it's all cut up and stuff. But they got attacked by a Sasquatch, and his nephew got hit, swamped by his arm, by the Sasquatch arm, broke his arm, broke 3 ribs, and he said he fired off a round, and he said 2 more came running, and he said when they got done, only 2 left, and I didn't ask any more questions.
Well,
so
yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, if these are Sasquatches that come around me, they haven't been really that aggressive. I'm waiting for one to kind of scream at me, like from 20 feet away.
Oh, I dropped dead of a heart attack.
What's that? Oh,
I dropped dead of a heart attack.
Well, I'll be scared, but I mean, I still want to have the experience of them screaming at me so I can at least say that happened. And
right.
Like when I first started doing these Sasquatch documentaries, when I first started looking, I was a 10% believer. And since, 5, 6, 7 documentaries later, 5 years later, I'm probably 50-50 that these creatures probably do exist. But I want to get that up there to 100 because I want to be able to have a daytime sighting. But if these creatures were around me, they weren't that aggressive. When I was in Ohio, investigating Ohio grassman, we're in the forest, and something threw a log. It was a big log. It was like that. Actually, it was bigger than that, but it was big. It was a big log, like a stump. And I was filming this direction, and it landed behind us, and I quickly turned. I caught that on audio, but I didn't actually physically catch the log in the air. But it landed and made a hell of a noise. I jumped and screamed like a female Sasquatch, probably. But yeah, I would be lying if I said I didn't get scared when I go out there. Like I've taken helicopters deep into the forest, got dropped off for 2 days, and then the helicopter came back and picked me up later. And I can tell you, it is terrifying out there in the darkness sometimes. Oh, even with my split personality disorder. What was that? Yeah, they don't even help at all. Right. But yeah, it's just been it's been a blast, and I can't wait to see what happens in the future. It's getting really popular, and I'm being pulled in different directions, which is a good thing. Being invited out to speak at some of the Bigfoot conferences. Hopefully, I get more requests to come out and just talk about my experiences and maybe show my film.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I've won over 40 international film awards for my documentary series. Just won a new one last week, or actually 3 days ago. And
That's
yeah,
awesome.
that's fun. From Japan. That was interesting to win an international film award from a Japanese uh, film, film place. So that was kind of cool. You know, I mean, yeah, who knows what's going to happen in the future? I do know I'm going to be going to Florida to investigate the swamp ape. So that should be fun. You know,
Oh yeah.
I don't know why he's so hard to find. I mean, they call him the swamp ape, right? So you should be able to smell him out. Oh, he's over here, guys. Oh, yeah. Oh God, yeah, he's over there. Yeah, I just
Speaking of
stepped in the
that,
pool.
why do you think they're so elusive to everybody?
Well, almost at this point, it's almost like they they like the game. It's almost like they like the challenge. They kind of like playing with us, more or less. At least that's what I found. I mean, honestly, if they wanted to kill me, they would just do it,
Right.
right? There's nothing you can do. You're in the forest where they live, So when stuff hits the fan, when I'm around there and things start happening, as much as I'm scared, I'm not going to run away because there's no place to go. If I'm still standing here filming or doing my thing and not ripped apart yet, then I think when they start throwing stuff at you, I think that's a time to kind of turn around and walk away. Because I think when they start, being physical, I think you come way too close to them. But allegedly in Michigan, uh, a bunch of us were chasing um, a young Bigfoot in the forest, and you know, and they kept saying, don't get too close, But if it was a young Bigfoot, as some of the researchers were saying, we were really close. You could hear it like running through the forest, like stomping, and you think that the adults would, intervene because here we are like jumping logs and running, and we could hear it running through the forest, and it would stop and lie down. Allegedly. I mean, for all we know, we're chasing a gnome, and we know they're all real for sure.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, where do you actually draw the line in the sand? I mean, we got monsters watching or washing up on beaches
Yeah,
across the world, and what do? They dig a hole and bury it on the beach. I
yeah,
don't understand that.
yeah. Well, I'd like to investigate other cryptids though, like other, Dogman and the flying reptile. Um, all these the Yeti. I don't know. I don't know if the Yeti would be. I mean, the adventure of going there would be fun, but something about investigating in -40 weather just doesn't doesn't sound appeasing to me anyway. You know.
Right,
I
right.
mean, I just believe the Yeti is just another species of these creatures. You know, some people think they're completely different. I'm like, I don't know. They kind of act the same, they look the same, they smell the same, they do very similar stuff. I think the Yeti isn't as big. I think the Yeti is a little bit, shorter. I
Shorter.
mean, who knows? Who knows? If people haven't just run up to the creature and said, "Hey, give me a second. I'm just going to measure you." Yeah, you're 7 feet tall. Definitely not as big as Sasquatch. Okay, talk to you later. Yeah. So,
That's where the measurements come into
yeah,
play. 2 inches to a
yeah,
foot.
yeah, exactly. Um,
So with Sasquatch and polar bears, what colors are polar bears?
well, I mean, the hair on a polar bear is see-through,
That's
transparent,
right. That's right.
right? I mean, you can only see it through. It only looks white because from a distance, it's like when you clutter a whole bunch of stuff,
That is
right?
correct.
Um, with the Yeti, some have claimed that they see a white one, but a lot of times they're just as dark as the Sasquatch. I mean, it wasn't until Christmas when they brought out the Yeti in the Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer that now everyone thinks is the Yeti as white, just because it lives in the snow. Well, I've talked to 4 people who allegedly have seen this Yeti while backpacking in Nepal, and they said it was dark brown. They didn't say it had any white on it. So it's interesting.
Yeah, it is. It really is. So, I mean, it never fails. You know, we were always told what we are to believe in, what we are to see and not to see. You know, our whole life.
Yeah.
You know, and the thing is that what do you believe in? And how far do you draw the line? And I always say that you can never draw the line in the sand because you're going to always have to move the line.
Yeah.
You know, God said in the Bible that He made creatures seen and unseen.
Mm-hmm.
Now, there's a lot of missing books out of the Bible, which no, everybody, Grizzly's not going to go on a biblical reference and start talking about religion, but it does tie into certain things, you know, about religion. It really does.
Mm-hmm. But, who knows? Until we can actually study a living creature, we will not know 100% what they really are, what they really do. We can only speculate, right?
Well,
We
do
can
you think
only
do you
assume.
think we have bodies already?
Oh, probably. I mean, I imagine the government knows where it is
Mount
and
St.
whatnot.
Helens back in the
Yeah,
80s.
stuff like that. Like who knows? I mean, it just seems like the camera just kind of freezes up when the big thing comes around, right? Either either they can do something to the camera, or just everybody that takes a picture has a cold at that one moment. Achoo! Look, I got the picture. It looks great.
Right,
I think it's this way. Like who
right.
knows? Like really. But as I always say, just let the Bigfoot adventure continue, right? Go out and see if you can gather evidence. The footprints are interesting. Um, the eye shine. I mean, my problem is trying to take the video to the next level because sometimes I don't always get action, right? And then I have to put together a Bigfoot documentary that is, not unlike the Texas Screams, which is one of my favorite. And yeah, but I should be going now. But before I go, I just want to say thank you so much, Grizzly, for having me on here.
Oh, absolutely. Now, how does everybody get a hold of you again, sir?
So you can find me if you were to Google Jason Kenzie, searching for Sasquatch. You'll find me. You'll find I have a website called searchingforsasquatch.ca. Instagram is searching for Sasquatch. I think TikTok is searching Sasquatch, or it might be the other way around. I can never remember, but they can find me there. Yeah, basically you just Google my name, Jason Kenzie, Animal Adventures, searching for Sasquatch. There's over 400 animal adventure videos online, like on YouTube, that they can watch any of my animal stuff. For Sasquatch, yeah, Tubi TV is probably the best place to go and check out what I do. And there's going to be a lot more searching for Sasquatch in the future.
That's
As we
awesome.
speak, I'm working on a paranormal documentary right now with ghosts.
That's
Um,
awesome.
Being a bit of a skeptic there, I just wanted to dwell into it and interview eyewitnesses and do a ghost hunt and investigation. And so I'm working on that at the moment, but I'm also working on 2 other Bigfoot documentaries that will be out probably in the new year.
Well, that's awesome. Glad to hear that.
Thank
Ladies
you.
and gentlemen, if you want to be on my show, all you have to do is email me at Grizzly, the paranormal at gmail.com. Once again, that's Grizzly, the paranormal at gmail.com. And once again, Grizzly is always on the hunt. Just remember that. And it's been great and a pleasure meeting you. And I would
You
really
too.
like to have you back on the show, sir. I really would.
Yeah, sure. I'll come back on when I have, when I'm almost, when I have chapter 7, the Ohio Grassman. I'll come
Oh,
back
that'd
on
be
and I can
awesome.
promote that and tell you the adventures there. But yeah,
Hopefully,
thank
you
you
have
so
some
much.
good pictures.
Oh yeah, yeah, I got some good stuff, good aerial stuff, lots of drone stuff. Yeah, the best. All right, well,
Awesome.
thank you so much.
Well, thank you, sir. I really enjoyed it. You have a good
Oh,
afternoon.
all right, you too. Thank you.
All
Bye.
right. Bye bye.